Hi guys, welcome to our fourth lesson. Today we are talking about composition. Alright, so we're going to again watch Video Coach and then we will review what we just went over, and then of course I will be asking you for an exit ticket for your grade. So we ready to get started? Here we go.
We just learned about sequences and continuity, and that's really the language of visual storytelling. Now we're going to talk about composition, how you frame a shot. And everyone shoots differently. You can really express yourself and show your own personal style by the way that you compose a shot. So shooting for broadcast isn't just about getting things in the frame. That's certainly important, but there are some standard rules for composing shots. We're not saying you can never break these rules. We're only saying that these are good starting points that every professional videographer knows by heart. Breaking these rules can be very powerful and really creative, so feel free to do so after you learn and master them. First up, the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is by far the most valuable concept you can learn for framing a shot. You will use this all the time in almost everything you shoot. It's a surefire way to make your shots more visually interesting. Most beginning shooters tend to center everything they shoot, kind of like this. Now let's apply the rule of thirds to this otherwise mundane shot. When looking through your viewfinder, imagine 2 horizontal and 2 vertical lines, dividing your screen into 9 boxes, kind of like a tic-tac-toe board. The rule of thirds says to put your subject in one of the 4 crosshairs. And when your subject's over in one of these crosshairs, it causes the viewers to move their eyes across the image. And this is starting to look really familiar. Okay, let's take a look at our sequence again of the guy in the park. Notice how each shot in this sequence utilizes the rule of thirds. In the wide shot, he's in the left and bottom crosshair. In the medium shot, his eyes are on one of the crosshairs, and so is his glove. And notice where the tight shot draws your attention. To the ball going into the glove, which is lined in the crosshairs on the bottom right side. You can also use this when shooting horizons. Instead of putting the horizon right in the middle of the frame, try aligning it with the lower line. This draws more attention to the sky. Or if you align the horizon with the upper line, it'll draw more attention to the land. Alright, let's go back to some of that B-roll from the arcade and see if you can notice how the shooter used the rule of thirds. Now a few final examples of the rule of thirds from the park. Here's the shot of the pond. Can you see how we're using the rule of thirds here? Notice how the sign is aligned to the left vertical line, and the edges of the pond are aligned with the upper and lower third lines. How about this shot? As you can see, this lower row of ducks is aligned with the bottom line, and the mother duck on the right side is aligned with the right line. How about this one? Can you find the rule of thirds here? If you're new to shooting, the rule of thirds should be the first and only thing you worry about when composing a shot. You'll use the rule of thirds almost any time you shoot footage of a person. The basic rule here is called eyes on third. If there's a person on the screen and you don't know how you should frame them, it's always safe to put their eyes on the upper line or the top 1/3 line. The shorthand for this is simply eyes on third. This doesn't matter if it's a wide shot, a medium shot, or a tight shot. It doesn't matter if they're walking or standing still. If the eyes are on third, the person will be properly framed. This is almost always used in interviews, but we'll talk more about that in Volume 2. The eyes need to be aligned with the upper third line and one of the vertical lines. When you do this, you create what's called nose room. Some people call this talking space. Nose room is just the empty area of your frame in front of the person. The rule here is to put the eyes on the vertical line that makes more nose room in front of the person. This is correct framing. The eyes are on third, and there's plenty of nose room, or talking space. This is classic incorrect framing. Eyes are on third, but there's no nose room in front of the subject. This feels awkward to watch for some reason, and there's all this unused space behind the person. If your subject is facing right in your frame, create some nose room off to the right of them. If they're facing left, create some nose room to their left. You'll be amazed at how much more professional your footage looks when you use these 3 simple rules. The rule of thirds, eyes on third, talking space. Here are the 2 things you need to consider when it comes to light. Number 1, how much light is available to you? Number 2, how much light am I letting into the camera? Some things are just too dim to shoot. In this case, you'll need to bring a light. But some things are already bright enough. You just need to adjust your camera to let more or less light into the camera. Here's what you don't want. This shot is underexposed. It's way too dark. You can hardly see a thing. This shot is way overexposed. See how everything is very bright. In both cases, we lose detail. Different cameras have different ways of letting more or less light in. Sometimes it's the shutter, sometimes it's the iris. You just have to get familiar with your own specific camera. What we can tell you here is that this is good, this is overexposed, and this is underexposed. You want this. Here they are side by side. Notice the one on top is properly exposed. The one on the bottom left is overexposed, and the one on the bottom right is underexposed. You want the top one. Alright, so let's review. We have the rule of thirds. Putting your subject in one of these 4 crosshairs, or aligning them with one of the vertical or horizontal lines, creates a more interesting shot. Eyes on third. Always frame a person with their eyes on third. No matter how you're shooting them or what the shot looks like, their eyes should be on third. Talking space. Your subject should have plenty of talking space or nose room in front of them. Pay attention to lighting. Be careful not to overexpose or underexpose your shots. Well, that about does it for Chapter 4. Up next, we're going to take a look at the top 10 things that every video journalist should know how to do.
Okay, so we are talking about the basic rules, and then they also talked about a little bit about light exposure. Now, until we get into the classroom and you guys get a hold of the cameras, if you have your own cameras at home, awesome. If you want to use your phone, you are very likely, when it comes to getting the correct light exposure, the best thing to do is simply pay attention to how much light is around you. Another thing that we need to talk about with light is backlighting, but we'll do that at a later time. In the meantime, just pay attention to if things are too light or too dark, overexposed or underexposed. All right, so going back to the composition rules, basic composition rules. First of all, we've got the rule of thirds, otherwise known as eyes on third, right? So if you look at this chick right here, no, her eyes are not on third, but her head is tilted. We have her lined up in the crosshairs, and we actually put the center of her face in the crosshairs of those lines. All right, so if you look at my cursor, her lower eye is on this top third. And when you do eyes on third, don't forget to do the top third, not the bottom third. If you do it on the bottom third, they look like dwarves. All right, so rule of thirds, or eyes on third. Be sure to get your person's eyes on the top third. And if you notice, even when I frame myself, I generally try to keep myself on that top third. All right, next is look room. And I am tilted a little bit more. When I tilt myself more that way, I have the correct amount of look space. So look room or nose room is a space between my nose and the end of my screen. Now, if I turn and I'm talking more this way, it feels awkward and tight. If you break this rule, that's fine. If your character is feeling trapped, so if your character is experiencing something where he or she is feeling confined or trapped, can't move, they're in a bad situation, that is when you would consider breaking the look room rule. All right? Next up, we have headroom. Now, if you get your person on the top third, if you get eyes on third, then you will always have the correct amount of head space. It's important to remember, you should cut off the top of the head before you cut off the chin. So, if I do a close-up, and my eyes are on third. Hi guys! As you can see, my eyes are on the top third, right? What gets cut off first? The top of my head. If I get on the bottom third, guess what? The bottom of my chin is getting cut off, and that doesn't look right. So, close up, eyes on third, the top of the head gets cut off first, so you are getting, in fact, the correct amount of head space. All right, and that's it. What I would like for you to do for an exit ticket, very simple. Remember, last time you guys sketched me out a wide, medium, and tight shot. This time I want for you to do the wide, medium, and tight shot on thirds. So if you look at this example, see, I've got the heads on the crosshairs at the top, on the top third, and yeah, and I have them on a third. All right? So I don't want to see any stick figures in the columns, only on the lines. If you are able to give me a drawing. If not, I want for you to describe using complete sentences and proper punctuation what the rule of thirds is, okay? So exit ticket, either send me 3 drawings, wide, medium, and tight, using the rule of thirds, or send me a description of what the rule of thirds is, all right? I will see you guys shortly on WebEx, hopefully. Have a great day, guys.